In this short video, I'm going to share 3 easy to apply tips that will make your podcast sound way better immediately. And 2 of the tips are free. Okay, let's podcast. Hey Podski, welcome to the Pod Sound School. I'm Studio Steve, and on our channel, we are obsessed with helping you to improve and go places with your podcast. So if that's something you can vibe on, hit the subscribe button and stay in the Pod Sound School loop. So, you want your podcast to sound better, right? Well, what exactly do you mean by better? What's wrong with the sound of your podcast to begin with? Does it sound too quiet, too loud, muffled? Do your podcast voices sound like they're really far away? Does each one of your episodes play at different volumes? Is your voice really harsh on the ears? Well, you're likely watching this video because you either received some negative feedback on your podcast's sound quality, or when you compare your podcast to the network shows, you feel really tiny.
Why doesn't my podcast sound like that?
Oh, don't worry, Tiny Steve. After you watch this video, you'll know everything you need to know to make your podcast sound way better.
Thanks, Giant Steve.
Don't mention it. Woo. Okay, so let's start with tip number 1. Your recording space. So this one might seem obvious, but for so many of us, we overlook this part completely. When it comes to where you record your podcast at, no matter what microphone you're using, it's important that the room sounds nice. And here's 2 main problems that you want to look out for in your room. Number 1, reverb, echo, or room reflections. This is caused by hard surfaces like wood, floors, walls, and ceilings, and 90-degree angles are particularly echoey and reflective, so don't podcast in a corner. If we are in a really reflective or reverberated room, our voice will sound like it's far away. Quick solutions to this: move to a less echoey room. Cover the hard surfaces. You can go cheap and hang up blankets or curtains, or you can go the fancy and spendy route and get some acoustic foam. I'll leave a link in the description below where you can find my suggestions for acoustic foam. Another big problem to watch out for in your recording space is noise! Noise! It's noise. The obvious noise would be like screaming kids, barking dogs, traffic, loud TV playing in the other room. But the less obvious noise that many of us forget are the little annoying buzzes and hums, like fluorescent lights, air vents, fans, refrigerators, and computer buzz. Solutions? Move to a different room. Don't podcast in your kitchen. Turn off any buzzing or humming electronics. You can temporarily turn your cooling unit or heating unit off while you record. And as far as the computer buzz, get some extension cords for your microphones and audio interfaces and things so that your computer can stay farther away from your microphones. I actually have my computer completely outside of my recording room. And before we move on to tip number 2, I want to let you know that none of these tips are going to cover podcast editing. That's for a whole nother video altogether. And there are a ton of things you can do after you record your podcast that will make your podcast audio shine. I have a free podcast editing training that you can grab your seat for by clicking here. Okay, now that that's out of the way, let's move on to tip number 2. Okay, so microphone technique. No matter what microphone you're using, even if it's the microphones on your phone, there are things you can do to get the juiciest and most delicious sound out of your voice. The first one is proximity. You want to get really nice and close to your microphone. The closer you are to the microphone, the more of your tasty voice frequencies you will get picked up. Also, when you get closer to a mic, something called the proximity effect happens, and the low frequencies of your voice get boosted. This can make for a really nice, beefy, broadcast sounding voice. Let me illustrate this real quick with the popular podcasting USB microphone, the Samson Q2U. So when I'm back away from the microphone like this, I'm gonna have to crank up my preamp or my gain to get the microphone loud enough to pick up my voice, which in turn will pick up more of the room and more noise. Also, I'm just gonna sound like I'm farther away. But listen to how the vocal quality improves as I get slowly closer to the microphone. With every little increment of distance from the microphone, my vocal quality improves, and I have to turn the preamp up less, which results in a better, more high quality sound. And then when I get really close, and I'm actually lowering my voice, but when I get really close, that's when you hear the proximity effect. And now you're getting a more broadcast sounding voice just by how close I am to the microphone. You'll also want to train yourself to stay in the sweet spot and don't move your voice very much. And just stay right here. Even when you turn to talk to your friend, don't turn with your whole head like this. Turn and tilt. That way your mouth stays in front of the microphone. And you just keep your voice, keep your lips and your mouth right in that sweet spot. The other thing to have in mind with your microphone technique is avoiding plosives. Plosives are nasty little pops or puffs of air that happen when we say words with P's in them. To avoid this, people will use pop filters, windscreens, and we will also approach the microphone at an angle which allows the air to pass through. Let me also illustrate this with the Samson Q2U. Okay, so like I mentioned, plosives are going to happen a lot more when you're directly in front of the microphone because puffs of air are going to hit the microphone. People will use pop filters and put a pop filter in there, and that will help the puff of air. Why don't I say Peter Piper picked a pepper? Peter Piper picked a pepper. Peter Piper picked a pepper. What you could even do is double up. Put a windscreen on there, go like that, and double up like this. Peter Piper picked a pepper. Peter Piper picked a pepper. Peter Piper picked a pepper. Okay? And then the other thing you can do without even using either one of these, I would still at least use a poofy on this microphone, but the other thing you could do is something called angle of approach or angle of attack, and that's to bring the microphone into your mouth at an angle. So I'll do that like this. We'll do this angle here so that you can see now I have the air is going to pass by the microphone. Peter Piper picked a pepper. And you can even kind of angle it like this and just get a touch away from the microphone, and you're going to get a better, your sweet spot is still right here. And the microphone is still picking up the sweet spot from your voice, but your air of those harsh P's is passing by the microphone. So that's another technique that you can put to use. Okay, and finally number 3, and this one can cost you some dollars. And that is to find the right microphone for your voice. Every microphone is different. The microphones that are built into our smartphones are designed to translate speech. They aren't designed to capture and create broadcast quality voices. So the first thing to use at least is something better than the microphone on your smartphone. The next step up is a USB microphone, and there are a few really good options for these, and I'll leave those options in the Podcaster's Gear Builder list. You'll find that link in the description box below. Also, we have a video where we compare the most popular USB microphones, and you can check that out right here. The step up from USB microphones are XLR microphones. These microphones will need to be used with an audio interface. An audio interface is really just a machine that you plug the microphone into, and then you plug the machine into your computer. This is the approach used by professionals, and the quality of both your microphone and your audio interface will result in the quality of your recordings. The good news here is that many professional podcasting setups are relatively affordable, especially when compared to other creative endeavors like video production. I'll also leave a link to my handy Podcaster Gear Builders list below that will really help you make sense of the top gear that professional podcasters are using and what's in your budget. And as always, if you have any questions about gear or podcasting in general, don't hesitate to reach out, leave a comment or question right here where you're watching this video, and I will personally respond. And also, like I mentioned earlier, I do have a free Getting Started Editing in Reaper FM. It's a podcast editing solution that's my favorite for podcasters. You can grab your seat for that. I'll also leave the link for that in the description box below. Good luck, Pod Doggy, and make sure to share your podcast URL with us here in the comments. That way we can check out your show. And I'll catch you in another podcasting video. Microphone technique. Okay, here we go. I got it. I got this. I'm fine. The man's lost his mind. It's like the older I get, the more my head looks like a potato. Kick back, relax, have a YouTube video with me. I don't know about the weird faces at the end. There was a little bit of psycho in this.